Successfully submitted.
Nice.
Look at this.
Let's
send this to Jordan Klein. Jordan Klein, my dude. Find it here. Under, over. Bang. Look at this. Let me get this on the screen. Oh, am I live? Is that what's happening? Oh, look at me. My voice is live. I will say, both of these two, voices of angels. Mine's the voice of a screechy car. Okay. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. Let's do this NFL Live Before Lock thing. That is the show that we are on, presented by PrizePicks. Again, excited to talk a little NFL action. I love these low total showdown games. I hope you do too. Looking forward to this one. Dolphins, Saints, let's party. And I've got two guys to party with here on this Monday afternoon. My guy, Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. How you doing, my dude?
Hey, thrilled to be here. Excited to talk this very strange slate with a quarterback with a lot of unknowns. But often when we have a lot of people out, a lot of absences, and a lot of news, people who have been grinding all week like us, we got a little bit of an edge. So let's see if we can pass that on to the people listening and watching.
Well, I got another guy who might be able to spark a little bit of an edge. He's coming off of,
you think?
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yeah, 125K yesterday. Neil Orfield in Showdown. The thing that we're talking here. Seems like the right guy to bring on here right about now. Neil, congratulations. How are you doing this fine Monday, and why is it fantastic?
Thank you. Yeah, it is fantastic. It is fantastic because of that 125,000 that you just mentioned. It was not going well up until that point. Earlier in the day, I lost everything on the main slates, just went terribly. All my best ball lineups died. It was an awful day until finally Sunday Night Showdown went really well. So happy to be back doing Showdown. You know, it's probably my favorite type of game. So I'm happy to be talking about it here with you guys today.
Neil, you know what this is?
What is
this?
The
world's tiniest violin right here. Right there for you. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell as we're getting going here. I'm just playing. Neil Orfield, he's my guy. He's Minneapolis born and bred. You can't hate that. So 125K, congrats. Let's dig into this one though, but let's just talk initial impressions of this slate here. Matt Savoca. We've got a really low total here. We've seen kickers kind of come to fruition in some of these spots. We're going to be talking a lot of defense, perhaps more than we normally do, even on these showdown shows. But specifically, how are you approaching this slate?
Well, I think in general, on slates like this, we're not moving away entirely from quarterbacks because the quarterbacks have a larger range of outcomes, many of them in the negative. It just means that we're kind of shifting our focus. Whereas, usually the quarterbacks are going to be in a ton of optimal lineups. I think you can make an argument that this week especially, there are, possibilities for multiple defenses, multiple kickers, weird negative correlations that we would stay away from in a main slate situation that we're definitely going to be looking at if we're entering multiple lineups. I know I'm going to be over the field on the defenses, on the kickers, but I do actually think there are some ceiling games if you played this slate over and over for both quarterbacks here. So I think it just increases the range of outcomes altogether.
Yeah, Neil, I'm looking at these totals, and I try to use Vegas implied odds just like everybody else to figure out where to go with things. Check out oddshopper.com, the best place to go check out some of that. We'll talk about it later, but New Orleans, 3.5 point dogs is kind of what we're looking at there. A tiny bit of line movement towards the over of 37.5. So that's not exactly too super enthusiastic, but coming off of your win, what do you think the key ingredients are tonight to cooking up the right winning lineup?
Touchdowns, I think so. A lot of slates. So a lot of slates. I'm going to elaborate on that. On a lot of slates, I might say somebody like a Traquan Smith. So he's 4,600 on the slate. I might say, even if he scores a touchdown, if he has one catch for 10 yards and a touchdown, it's not going to be enough. I think on this slate, anybody who scores a touchdown is probably going to be enough just because it's such a low total. It's not going to take a whole lot, most likely to be in the winning lineup. So if you can nail the guy who scores a touchdown, and especially if it's a low-owned guy, I think you're golden. But also kickers then look better because, if it's going to be a 9-6 kind of game, those 3 field goals or 2 field goals are going to be worth something. So yeah, you can get a little bit weird on this one.
Yeah, I think that there are definitely going to be more paths to incorporating your builds. You want to be specific about how you go about building game script for some of this stuff. And having the tools here at Awesemo is definitely going to help you do that. We're going to cover a lot of it. We're going to cover a lot of the showdown tools that are the best in the industry. And we're going to continue to refer to those here for DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo. Let's get into it position by position, like we always do, starting with the quarterbacks. And Tua Tagovailoa coming off of 6 wins in a row now, Matt Savoca, 6 wins for this guy. He's been looking very efficient is probably the right way of putting it. He's definitely kept the ball in front of him, like kept the ball like for Miami here, just kind of played within himself is probably the right way of saying it, because nothing looks super fantastic in the box score over the course of this run. He's failed to exceed 20 DraftKings points in their last 6 wins here. It's definitely been a recipe of efficiency. Jalen Waddle back in the mix, I think definitely helps him here, have another explosive playmaker. But how are you handling Tua here on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, having Waddle back absolutely helps. And I think that's a good way of putting it. In terms of our advanced stats, Miami actually ranks top 10 in the NFL in game script adjusted pass rate, but they've kept things methodically slow. They're bottom 10 in our game script adjusted pace of play. And like you said, efficiency might not be my favorite word, but maybe accuracy would be better, because he's 19th in adjusted yards per attempt, 17th in fantasy points per game, but he is number 1 in the NFL in red zone completion rate, deep ball completion rate, that's 20 or more air yards passes, and second in the NFL in true completion rate, which takes out dropped passes and throwaways. So that accuracy mixed with the fact that they're actually the 8th highest team in pass plays per game, there's definitely some ceiling here. And especially because we've got, I guess, a full-blown running back by committee in the Miami backfield, Tagovailoa suddenly becomes the safest play on Miami by a large amount. I'm going to have a lot of Tagovailoa. Now, trying to win tournaments, I will be moving away from him at the captain spot, but at the same time, when you got a backup, a third stringer on the other side, Tagovailoa, probably the safest play here from a floor standpoint.
Yeah, Neil, I'm looking over here on FanDuel and Yahoo, and we actually have Tua as the top scorer, the highest percentage of the time out of any other player. That includes Alvin Kamara. That includes the future mentioned Ian Book. But I'm looking here at Tua, and it seems like on FanDuel and Yahoo, he might make a more pronounced play, although he's got positive leverage over here on DraftKings as well. I don't want to steal your bit talking about the tools, because I believe you are the most foundational piece we have of somebody complimenting the tools here in the history of Awesemo.com. But if you win 125K, that'll happen. How are you handling Tua here on this slate?
Yeah, I really like Tua on this slate. The only issue I have with how much I'm getting is it's hard for me to play everybody I want to. This game, it's so spread out. It's not a very concentrated slate, so it's hard to play all of the different weird plays that you want to. And Tua is obviously not going to be a weird play, so I probably can't get, I probably need to come off the 80% that I'm getting currently. But yeah, I think Tua looks great. It's probably going to be a low scoring game, so I'm going to be playing plenty of Tua. As you mentioned, he looks great in the tools, especially on FanDuel and Yahoo, like you mentioned, because you don't get that multiplier on the salary. I think that Tua just makes a lot of sense. He is the most optimal captain because there is no salary multiplier. So yeah, I think playing Tua in the captain spot, in the MVP spot on FanDuel makes a lot of sense. In the superstar spot on Yahoo makes a lot of sense. And then even on DraftKings, as Matt said, sometimes in big tournaments you might want to get away, but Tua still looks, he's positively leveraged in the captain spot on DraftKings, so you can still play him there. We have him owned at 12.9% in the captain spot on DraftKings and optimal 16.5% of the time. Don't be afraid to play Tua at captain with the Saints defense if you want to get a little bit different ways to get unique. But there are viable ways to make good positive EV lineups with Tua in the captain.
I think you've kind of been the guy, definitely for me. You go to Cruncher, max 5, you can just simply let it roll, I think, with the defenses in a game like this more so than any other time. It's just kind of crazy. And one of the other reasons that I think Miami's defense is going to be as popular as they are is Ian Book is going to be the quarterback here, third stringer out of Notre Dame. I think just overall impressions is one, I don't really know what to expect, just like most people don't know what to expect. I think most people might be expecting that he's just garbage and going to go out and chuck it a lot. We don't have that high of a projection for pass attempts here in the projected stats page. Right now, 29 pass attempts, approximately 19 and a half completions here for him. So a little bit lower pass volume. And that's because he adds a lot with his legs back in his college days. Over 1,500 yards in his 4 years at Notre Dame as a starter, the most winning quarterback there for Notre Dame. Again, I don't know how to assess that here on the NFL level, but for Showdown tonight, obviously we need to invest him in a little bit. How are you looking to utilize him here, Matt Savoca?
Oh, I'm definitely going to go for it. I know it doesn't feel good. I might have to take a shower after I play him, but I'm going to be over the field on Ian Book. First of all, fundamentally, he is a quarterback on a single game slate. He's going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to have the opportunity. So we're going to have to respect him, the projection enough that he's going to be in lineups plenty just that way. But with Ian Book, I did look at the college stats, and obviously we don't know how well that's going to translate to the NFL right away. Certainly on a single game slate, we have variance for every quarterback, but a 1.5% interception rate in his last 3 years as a starter in Notre Dame, that's nothing to scoff at. That's really, really solid. And a 6.5% touchdown rate during that same time. That's not spectacular, but 6.5% touchdown rate and 1.5 interception rate, that would get it done in the NFL. That'd be just fine. So we would call that efficiency, his efficiency ceiling for the pros. The Miami defense is solid. In PFF's team defensive grades, they're top 10 in the NFL, just like the Saints are. In schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed, they're right at league average, and honestly, they're a pass funnel, meaning they're easier to pass on than rush against. So if Ian Book has anything, this might actually be a defense he could theoretically exploit. I will say, though, if that pass rush from Miami, which is really solid, if that gets home, he's going to be running for his life.
Yeah, I think that's all pretty fair to say. And Rosso Music said that he watched highlights of Ian Book today. I joined Team Watch the Tape today. I went back and watched Notre Dame play Alabama. You can watch that on YouTube in like 10 minutes. It was beautiful. And again, I love anything where they just simply smash the plays in between and you don't have to watch, the garbage commentating from anybody. That would be great. But I will say, it seemed like he was under pressure pretty much the entire game here. It didn't look like Notre Dame's offensive line was that good and didn't have any answer for Alabama, but he was more than happy to run. And I think that that's going to be the theme of the way that I look at Ian Book is I truly think that if Miami's going to get pressure on him here, I assume there's going to be some option combinations here with Kamara. I assume that he's going to be a guy that his safety valve isn't necessarily just drop-offs to Kamara, but he's going to be able to make stuff happen with his legs. We have a 36-yard rushing projection for him. That's one of my favorite props on the board. We'll talk about that with PrizePicks. But Neil, that's just basically my lead in to ask you, how are you viewing Ian Book in this spot?
Yeah, so similar to Tua, I'm going to be playing a lot of Ian Book. As you said, he looks great in the tools. We have project for 9.1% captain ownership, 13.3% captain optimal. That obviously looks great. And then in the utility, even better, 45% utility ownership, 58.1% utility optimal. So on DraftKings, Ian Book is one of our most leveraged play, the second highest positively leveraged play. So yeah, I'm gonna be playing a lot of Ian Book. My plan before I talked to Matt Savoca before we got on was to play a ton of Ian Book against the Dolphins defense and just slam that in to get that slight negative correlation that the field would be scared against. And then Matt told me that stat, the 1.5% interception stat, that scares me off it a little bit. I'm still going to be going there though, just because there are other ways for the Dolphins defense to cause turnovers, and probably the Saints are going to be playing from behind. So that will at least increase the likelihood of Ian Book throwing interceptions and also just increase the likelihood of the offense screwing up. So I think I'm going to be playing a lot of Ian Book, and then I'm not going to be afraid to play him against the Dolphins defense.
All right. Well, I mean, anything else you guys want to add to the quarterback position? It feels like every single week, it's so strange because it's never a position that you're outright fading. I mean, it's just like a very tough outright fade. Matt Savoca, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just to add to that point, Neil, I think that 1.5% interception rate is really just to say that he was able to not throw interceptions in college, but the Miami defense stymied Lamar Jackson a few weeks ago. So this is not a situation where I think suddenly this guy is God's gift to the earth at the quarterback position. I mean, I wish him all the best, but there's a reason he's a fourth round pick. Yeah. I mean, he was outside the top 100 picks for a reason. There's still a ton of downside here, despite there being a little bit more upside than people might think.
All right, everybody. Well, we don't really have anything else to say here at the quarterback. Let's move ourselves to running back, where we might have some more to say. And here we go. Three-headed monster. Not that, everybody's going to be kind of presuming Duke Johnson coming off of coming from nowhere and ruining Myles Gaskin chalk week last week. Duke Johnson, he's kind of the main candidate to lead in carries here, but with Phillip Lindsay in the picture now getting acclimated, I mean, Duke Johnson was literally on practice squads doing nothing, and now we're going to be rostering him as the chalk running back from Miami. Neil, how are you feeling about this situation?
Well, I don't love that that they're playing against New Orleans' #1 rush DVOA defense. So
is that good?
Yeah, that's pretty good. You don't really like to see that. So yeah, so I'm going to be playing some of all of them. It's just somebody's gonna have to get the work, and they're going to be running some, I assume. I don't really have a strong feeling between Duke Johnson and Myles Gaskin. I'm going to be playing probably close to the field with both of them, maybe a little bit under the field would be my expectation. The place where I'm going to try to get different is actually Phillip Lindsay, just because we have projected for 1.3% ownership. And it would not be surprising to me at all to see Phillip Lindsay actually come in and get a significant workload here. He might not. He might get like nothing. We have no guarantee. He didn't really get any workload in the last game, but he is still he's still getting acclimated to the Miami offense, and they brought him in, so maybe they want to give him a shot, see what they have in him. So I think I'm going to be playing some Phillip Lindsay at 3,400, just because, like I said earlier, 3,400, he, on a lot of slates, he would need to either score a touchdown or, put up some serious yardage. It might be enough in a game like this for him to get just like a 1-yard touchdown might be enough, even at 3,400. And it wouldn't be surprising to me to see Phillip Lindsay come in as the goal line back and just get a simple touchdown somewhere. So I think Phillip Lindsay is where I'm going to get different than a field. I think I'm going to get significantly over that 1.3% on Phillip Lindsay. And then I'm going to be pretty close to the field, I think, on Myles Gaskin and Duke Johnson.
All right. Before we get over to Matt Savoca here, we've got 3 super chats to catch up on. St. Stephen 68, $9.99 to say, eating a salad right now. It's not meeting my celery-based expectations. Cheers, everyone. I see what you did there. That's beautiful. Sean Preston, just because all you do is help DFS lineups for us. Yes, you are very welcome for that, Sean Preston. Thank you so much for checking out all the shows that you do. See you there all the time. And Twisted Reality Gaming, you're always in here too. Guys, we got all the usual suspects. We're playing the hits today. Draftaholic, don't be too quick to doubt Ian Book. Brady was a 6th round pick, and look what happened with him. If we're going to say Tom Brady, yeah, we're not going to compare Tom Brady to anybody. That's probably the right way of looking at it. But Matt Savoca to the trio here of running backs. You don't have to touch on that last super chat if you don't want to, although it's pretty funny. Matt Savoca, go ahead.
It's fun. I think, as I said on the chat there, like, I legitimately want him to be good. Like, my lineups would do better if he played well. I just need to be realistic about what a 4th round quarterback tends to look like in the NFL. That's all we're saying. We're just talking about range of outcomes here. Speaking of range of outcomes. Hang on.
That book is yet to be written.
Oh no. No.
Let's go. Go ahead. Continue on.
We're going to close that chapter.
Oh no.
This running back by committee is a mess, right? Because Duke Johnson, no one expected that. Myles Gaskin was essentially the chalk against the Jets in week 15, and we all got smacked in the face when Duke Johnson finally got the feature role that I feel like the NFL analytics community has been clamoring for since like 2015. I don't know, since forever. But he finally gets it against the worst defense in the league last week, and he makes it, he has a pretty great game. I do think Phillip Lindsay makes a difference here. I think all 3 are playable. I did make a group that said if one of those players are in, to put some to boost down, give a demerit to the other running backs, but I didn't take it away. I don't think 2 running backs from Miami is going to be optimal, but I've seen weirder things on weird slates, so I won't rule it out.
All right. I'm with you. I totally understand that. I think that there's a path in a low total game for a lot of things to happen if you get some dump offs. My big thing is Duke Johnson, I've always thought of just as a pass catching back, and he came out and got such a large workload. It just does kind of concern me to think that, there might be a path to him getting a lot. But there was a quote, Neil Orfield, that you had earlier that you said that there were going to be involvement of all 3, that was the quote.
Yep, I read that on Dolphins Wire, I believe it was just said that
seems
all 3 of the backs
official.
Doesn't include Malcolm Brown, which is why I am. Yeah, it's a Twitter account with 10,000 followers, so Give it as much credence as you want. But they did not mention Malcolm Brown. I think Malcolm Brown might actually still be on IR. I am not planning on playing any Malcolm Brown, but I was basically looking for validation to my thought that maybe Philip Lindsay will play in this game, and I found the validation that I needed. So I just think that he's an interesting play that will get basically no ownership. So I think I'm gonna take some shots there.
Why, yes, Manny C. We have Monday Night Football player projections and NBA ownership rankings completely free to you today. So check out some of the content we have behind the paywall, completely free to you. Hopefully you enjoy. That's my gift to you post Christmas, in case you didn't get what you wanted. Let that be kind of a salvation for you. But here we go. Going to Alvin Kamara. What do we say about him, Neil Orfield? I mean, it's Alvin Kamara in a spot where there are multiple paths for him, both as a runner, where he's seeing 20 plus attempts, upwards of 27 attempts now in week 14 here. And then he also gets passing volume from time to time. We've seen 11, 6, 7 targets for him in the past 5 weeks. I mean, what do we do with Alvin Kamara in this spot?
Currently, I have a lot of Alvin Kamara. So he doesn't look great in the single game showdown tool, which is making me hesitate a little bit. Maybe I want to get away somewhat there. It's a spot with a lot of variance because we don't really know Ian Book's tendencies. We don't know if Ian Book is going to be checking down to Alvin Kamara. If he does, then I mean, Alvin Kamara will look great in this spot in a game that's a low total. All of those little checkdowns add up and he'll probably be optimal. But we don't know, and he doesn't look great in the tools. We have him project for 18.3% captain ownership. He's only optimal in the captain spot 10.9% of the time. So that's kind of massive negative leverage there on Alvin Kamara. And then in the utility spot, he's actually very neutral. He's projected for 50.3% ownership in the utility spot, 50% utility optimal. It wouldn't surprise me if he's actually higher owned than that, just because he's Alvin Kamara. He's the one player from this game that everybody will recognize the name. So it wouldn't surprise me to actually see Alvin Kamara come in a lot higher than that, which gives me some pause. I think I want to come down on my Alvin Kamara ownership a little bit, but he's still a very solid play. I mean, he's probably the best. He is the best skill position player in this game, I think. So you can definitely play some Alvin Kamara, but just know that he doesn't look that great in the tools, and we don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball at all. So don't play with a lot of confidence with Alvin Kamara.
Matt Savoca, are you doing anything different with Kamara on one site as opposed to another, maybe handling him differently on DraftKings or FanDuel than you are on Yahoo, so on and so forth?
Yeah, on DraftKings, I definitely have more. I actually have more than the field is expected to have him at the flex position, and I'm under the field at the captain position.
Same.
I think I can just spend my salary more effectively, and that's just kind of the way it's when I've optimized things out in Cruncher, that's kind of the way it's playing out. I do think that on FanDuel, on a half PPR site where touchdowns are worth more and touchdowns are probably going to come at a premium, if you just lined everybody up and said who has the highest probability of scoring a skill position touchdown, Kamara probably has double the probability of everyone else on the slate. So on FanDuel, I did give him a little boost, and yet I'm still under the projected ownership. That doesn't mean I dislike him by any stretch. It just means that I don't necessarily agree with how high the ownership should be.
Yeah, I think the salary structure on DraftKings is pretty interesting. I mean, we're getting Ian Book at 9K, and anytime you're getting a starting quarterback in that kind of a range, it makes it easier to jam in the other positions. So for me, I'm taking that exact same approach on DraftKings. I'm over on the utility number that we have for him. 48.6% is his current run there. Utility optimal being 51.7%. I think it makes a lot of sense to get over on that 50% number. And then going underneath on the captain ownership being 18%, where his captain optimal is only 9.2%. I'm 100%. I think that, again, I asked you a question with the answer that I wanted in mind, and you said it. So yay, I love you. And Neil, you still are richer than us. So that's cool. Let's go to any other ancillary options, because Neil, this is your specialty, my friend. Is it Troy Jones Jr. Day?
Tony Jones.
To him too. Why do I keep saying Troy? It's because Troy Brown Jr. I should not play NBA on Mondays. I just shouldn't.
I do not currently have any Tony Jones in my pool. Awesemo has been projected for 0 points. It's kind of rare that I play a player that Awesemo is projected for 0 points. If they're projected for more than 1 point, that's kind of my cutoff where I start having some interest. But when a player is projected for 0, we're not really expecting him to have any kind of workload. I'll be playing some Mark Ingram. I'm looking like I'm going to be close to the field with Mark Ingram. He is the second New Orleans running back that I'm going to play. He's projected for 21.8% ownership in the utility spot. I have 23.8 currently. We have him projected similarly to Duke Johnson. We actually have him projected higher than Duke Johnson and just a little lower than Myles Gaskin, and he's $2,000 cheaper and $2,200 cheaper than those two. So Mark Ingram looks pretty solid in this spot. He is the secondary running back that I'll be going to for New Orleans. I don't think you have to mess with Tony Jones on this slate. Although, again, like I said earlier, one touchdown for Tony Jones would do it if they brought him in. It seems less likely to me that Tony Jones sees a goal line look with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara ahead of him than Philip Lindsay, who has had that role before.
Agreed. I think that I know I'm with you there. Anything you want to add to that? Because again, I'm just lower on any of these ancillary running back options. I mean, it's kind of Kamara bust for me for New Orleans, Matt.
I actually have gone back and forth about this today, but okay. I wonder if we see some strange offensive formations with multiple running backs or one or two tight ends that are designed to just get the defense off balance, where the quarterback is essentially still going to run the ball 50% or more of the time there. So I wonder if Ingram and Montgomery see a larger snap share with Kamara on the field at the same time than we typically do. Now, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves here. I don't know anything that the beat writers in New Orleans or anyone else doesn't know here, but I just think that there's a possibility with this rushing quarterback who clearly doesn't have a huge command of the passing offense, or at least we don't think. They may have these auxiliary rushing weapons on the field at the same time. And, you know, we've seen Sean Payton use weird running back plays at the goal line in previous years, not so much this year, but that was a trope for a long time.
Yeah, it's been kind of his MO to really screw with us here from time to time. But I will say, I mean, Ian Book is not going to be Taysom Hill. I just kind of get that feeling. So I'm at least a little bit assured in that regard. Ian Book, though, I do expect some rushing attempts, maybe not necessarily at the goal line. Watch, I just totally talked him into that. Although that wouldn't be the worst thing for our lineups, I suppose. Maybe bad on certain props that you have over at PrizePicks, which, again, is the presenting sponsor we have here of the Live Before Lock show. Hit that like button if you're enjoying it, by the way. I think these guys are doing an immensely great job. So do that for us here as we're going. But PrizePicks is the place you want to go if you do not have legalized sports betting. And even if you do, it is super clean, super easy, and super efficient to play some of the best, most advantageous plays at PrizePicks to be able to find some of these props. I'm telling you right now, it is so fun to be playing over there. Plus, you get so many promos going right now. We have $100 first match deposit bonus when you use promo code Awesemo at PrizePicks. Go download it at the Google Play Store. Go download it at the Apple Store. It is available everywhere. But what do? You're going to pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 player props. You can win up to 10x your money. And there are definitely other combinations that make it a little bit more interesting, I think, than playing at a traditional sports book. So if you have a 5-point, one of the flex plays that they do, you can get 4 out of 5 and still win 5x your money. You can still get 3 of 5 and still get 0.4x your money. 10x your money, obviously, if you get all 5 right. But I think that that's a really fun caveat where if there's 1 or 2 plays that maybe aren't as interesting for you on a certain day, but they still seem profitable in our tools, definitely utilize them. Put them into the PrizePicks play and you're set to go. So we're going to head over to PrizePicks here now, and we're going to tell you our favorite plays here, starting with Matt Savoca. What is your PrizePicks of the day?
All right. So we talked about the GPP mentality of maybe the running backs get used on the field more. Well, in our PrizePicks plays, let's just go with the simple over 55.5 rushing yards for Alvin Kamara. Yes, the Miami defense has been tough, but we're going to see this third string quarterback hand off to Kamara plenty. He'll have enough to get to 55 or to get to 56 and over.
I love that play. Absolutely. It is in my play. Again, I'm playing PrizePicks. I think you should too, because I wouldn't just simply say that I enjoy playing over there and then not play over there. Check it out. I'm firing that one up. Hopefully I have a screenshot later, because Neil Orfield, I believe yours is also on my ticket.
Yeah, so I'm a fish, so I like to take overs, and I like things that can happen quickly. So I like the over on Nick Vannett, 2.5 receptions. We'll talk about him later. He looks great in the tools. He is the number 1 tight end for the Saints today. We are projected for 3.5 receptions. This bet has a 44% expected ROI on OddsShopper and a 66% win rate. So those are all great. I really like Nick Vannett for over 2.5 receptions today.
Tim D saying, I doubt Ian Book gets any called runs. If he runs, it will be because he scrambles. I think he gets less rush attempts. I think he gets a lot of rush attempts because I think he's going to have to scramble, which, I love the over of his rushing prop. It's still sitting below 30. I talked about it earlier. 36 is the number there, but I'm going to throw one out there. And we've talked about liking Tua, but under 1.5 pass attempts is going at -140, -150 around the industry right now. If you look at traditional sports books, I'm using that knowledge to inform a little bit of my decision-making over here on PrizePicks. Less than 1.5 touchdowns for Tua Tagovailoa. I think there's a path for him being optimal, even just throwing one touchdown pass. And, having Waddle back, having Devontae Parker healthy, we haven't seen that combination a lot. And those are two very, very good skill players, but I'm doing what Vegas is telling me here. And I think it makes a lot of sense to be shorting that prop. So check out PrizePicks, put those plays together, utilize that in a play, use promo code Awesemo, get that $100 first match deposit bonus, and best of luck. Let's rock, guys. We go to the wide receiver position where, hey, Miami got much, much healthier. We just got Jalen Waddle activated off the COVID list. We've had Devontae Parker coming off of being chalk and putting up adequate performances in his returns. Week 13, 11.2. He was super cheap that week. Then you're looking at week 15, 16.8. Those are pretty decent outings here. Only room for him to keep growing into this offense. Obviously, Jalen Waddle back is a little bit of a knock, but Matt Savoca, how are you viewing these top two wide receiver options from Miami?
Well, I just really see this as a top 3 if we're including Mike Gesicki, and I legitimately think that they could combine for a 70% or more target share among the 3 of them. We've seen Waddle have games where he has a dozen targets. I don't know if we're going to see that. I don't know if he gets the Marshawn Lattimore treatment all the way, but I do think that salary needs to come into consideration because outside of a couple of games here and there, it doesn't really seem like Tua Tagovailoa cares which of the 3 he features on a game-to-game basis. He's just trying to pick on matchups here. If I had to guess which one led the team in targets, I would say Waddle, but it's not worth it to get up in salary. So ultimately, I'm ending up with more Devontae Parker than I am Jalen Waddle on both sites right now.
Neil, are you kind of taking that same approach?
Yeah, I'm in the exact same spot. And I don't feel that great about it because this game has such a low total. It worries me a little bit just that Jalen Waddle can get so many targets, and even if he doesn't score a touchdown, if he has 8 catches in a game with this low total, he would probably be optimal. But he just looks so terrible in the tools today that I'm going to be under the field. We haven't projected for 37.1% utility ownership and only utility optimal 14% of the time. Mm-hmm. And then in the captain spot, we haven't projected for 8.9% ownership, only optimal 1.5% of the time. He is the most negatively leveraged play on the slate according to the tools today by far. So that scares me off him. I'm going to be under the field on Jalen Waddle. I'm uncomfortable with it just because I think that he can get so many catches, but sometimes you just got to trust the tools, and that's what I'm doing today.
I think playing multiple sites really helps with my worries about it. I'm playing him a little bit more on DraftKings. I think it's very hard in a PPR setting to say, I don't want Jalen Waddle. And specifically, I'm using him in a lot of 5-1, 4-2 builds where I'm stacking up more New Orleans or, going more defense prone simply because, you talked about it. This could be 2 very inept offenses. I mean, Saints are PFS second graded defense. I mean, this is not some, tiny team. They're completely decimated. They're starting a 3rd stringer, but because of the home field advantage, they're only 3-point dogs here in this spot. So I think Jalen Waddle, looking at him on the other side, I just think, there are a lot of paths where the Saints could just it wouldn't be surprising that the Saints went out and won this game by 10 or 14 and those kind of builds. I feel like Jalen Waddle is my favorite run back.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that he's a solid play. He just looks so bad in the tools that that I'm just.
So I guess for me, it's more of just approaching him in certain lineups with certain builds, with certain game scripts in mind. I'm kind of utilizing him a little bit more than others might be, making sure that I get some more of him in like 4-2 and 5-1 builds.
Yeah, I think that's really sharp. I think that's a good idea.
I dig it.
Neil just called me sharp, Matt. I mean, that feels good. I got the warm fuzzies.
Nice, dude. Now let's win that money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Matt Savoca always thinks that I'm nice and sharp on Sundays when we do live before lock together, right? Don't answer that. Let's continue on here. We have some other ancillary options here. Some tertiary options is the Lofty word of the day. If you guys would like to Google that one, I believe he uses that 99.9% of the shows that he appears. But Isaiah Ford, Preston Williams, you laughed because it's true. Isaiah Ford and Preston Williams are guys that are going to be on the field. Mac Hollins as well. Let's start with Neil with this one, actually, because he loves going to the bottom end and just scraping the bottom of the barrel in his 150. Which one of those three are you trying to make a thing today?
Ooh, yeah. So it's really tough for me. I don't know what to do with these guys. I'm actually currently under the field on all of them, and I'm hoping that I can do another crunch where maybe that changes a little bit. I think that my favorite of the bottom end of the Miami receivers is probably Mac Hollins. He has the top projection, but his projection is 2.34. That's not a very high projection. He's just 200, getting 4.4% ownership. I've played worse plays, so I think Mac Hollins makes a little bit of sense. Isaiah Ford looks fine, but again, I'm getting basically to the field that project for 5.2% ownership. I don't have a really good read on this situation. There are so many of these low end receivers on both teams that it's really hard for me to take a really strong stand, which I'm kind of hating. I'm kind of struggling with myself right now, trying to figure out what I want to do. It's going to end up being, I think I'm going to be playing more tight ends than receivers for the most part, but yeah, I'm struggling. I'm curious if Matt has a tiebreaker, if he has one that he really likes at the bottom.
Well, quote, well, you know what, Matt, go ahead. I'll let you speak for yourself.
I don't have a huge feeling, no, but I did see that Isaiah Ford saw 3 targets last week, and Albert Wilson is on IR, correct? And he's got 19% of the team's air yards in their last game here. So I think Mac Hollins is the deep threat that you want to go for in a single game slate, especially with the set. Like, he literally just has to catch like 2 passes and he's good to go, probably in the optimal lineup. And from there, I really don't know. I'm interested to hear what you were saying there before I got going, Eric.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, quote, I've played worse plays, Neil Orfield. That's the stamp of approval we were looking for. So,
yeah,
you know, that's why they pay him the sort of big bucks, but he wins the big bucks, so it doesn't matter. Let's keep it moving here, guys. We got the Saints side now to talk about, and we just poo-pooed on Ian Book's ability to throw to a certain extent. I mean, we don't know. Again, we don't know. He could be decent. He's probably not, but he could be. That'd be great for Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Ty Montgomery, even Lil Jordan Humphrey, who I believe has won a showdown slate for some people in previous weeks. This is kind of an interesting spot because, you know, again, Ian Book is so positively leveraged in our tools, and I'm going to have to find paths for him to be a captain optimal for a couple of these other plays. And that requires scraping this New Orleans side of the barrel. So Marquez Callaway, is that somebody that you're trying to make a thing here, Matt Savoca?
I don't love it, but it's definitely someone I'm getting to. Over the last 4 games played, Marquez Callaway has the most targets on the New Orleans Saints, 3 more than Traquan Smith, 5 more than Ty Montgomery. And, you know, in some of those games played, you had players like Deontay Harris available. Kenny Stills was a thing. Jawan Johnson was a thing. Players that are not playing in this one were a thing. Obviously, there's a ton of variance. I wrote in my write-up for this slate on Awesemo.com earlier today that no Saints wide receiver can be considered a safe play by any stretch. And I think even Nick Vanette, who I agree I like, there's still a ton of downside to him. There's a very low floor. I do think I am going to take some shots on Marquez Callaway and Lil Jordan Humphrey, just because there's been enough target share and air yard share for both players, but Traquan Smith is banged up. I'm not sure. I really like the price there. This is where I just like, I think I want to lean on players like Kamara, or just go on with Ian Book even, because at least there's guaranteed touches instead of some player just languishing, running wind sprints, getting no fantasy points.
See, Marquez Callaway is probably the guy that I do feel the most confident on, but he is definitely the guy that's getting the most attention from the field. Traquan Smith shortly behind, but I think looking at Awesemo's tools as well, heading to Odd Shopper, which I know Mike Lawrence, Awesemo, producing behind the scenes there, we pulled up there a second ago. Marquez Callaway, his over of what is it, 30.5 receiving yards. We've got a 41.4 projection there for him. That's a 13% expected ROI, 63% expected win percentage. I think looking at going positive on Callaway on a site like PrizePicks or sponsor makes a lot of sense. I think getting to Callaway as the highest owned of your New Orleans Saints wide receivers makes a lot of sense. He's on the field the most from previous weeks. I wouldn't see any reason that would change. Neil Orfield, how are you looking at this New Orleans receiving core?
So I feel similar as I felt to the Dolphins receiving core. There's too many of them. There's so many that I want to play. It's hard to play a ton of any of them. I think I agree with you that Marquez Callaway is the best, the most likely to hit. He's also the highest owned as a result. So I'm recrunching right now, so I can't look at exactly what my numbers are going to be, but I suspect I'm going to be a little bit under the field on Callaway, a little bit under the field on Traquan Smith, and I'm going to try. I'm recrunching in part because I'm trying to get over the field on Ty Montgomery, Will Jordan Humphrey, the guys that are lower up. We have Ty Montgomery projected for 6% ownership. He doesn't really have as much of that running back upside now with Ingram and Kamara healthy, but as Matt was saying, there's a chance that he gets in on some weird sets. So that makes Ty Montgomery a little bit interesting. I'm going to try to get over the 6% that we haven't projected for. Lil Jordan Humphrey, again, just only project for 7.8%. That's the kind of player that I like to get over on, because would it shock us at all if Lil Jordan Humphrey is the guy who scores the one touchdown for the Saints today? It wouldn't shock me. So I think I want to get over 7.8%. Those are my thoughts. I'm basically playing the ownership game. I don't think there's going to be anybody who puts up 100 yards and a touchdown. So you just got to find the guy who does have, 5 or 6 receptions or a touchdown. And I just want to get a little bit different than the field in taking my shots there.
Okay. I think that's more than fair here. I think we've done a pretty adequate job of doing the wide receiver core. Let's head over to tight end. I know we've kind of like sprinkled them into the discussions we've had because, any pass catching option you're kind of talking about straight up here, but Mike Gesicki, I think if we're not going to builds with, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, I think you're definitely looking at involving Gesicki quite a bit. In fact, he's 6th right now in top score percentage over on DK, 5.2%. Captain optimal though, 10.6%. It's just a larger number than what I was expecting for him. That's 4th best on the board, behind another tight end that we'll get to here later. But that's just behind Tua and Ian Book. So like Mike Gesicki is a guy that I'm getting to well above average here in the captain spot. And I'm actually a little bit below in the utility spot here. I'm going to try to bring that up a little bit, but do you kind of see it the same way, Matt Savoca?
Totally. And as I mentioned before, I think Mike Gesicki is absolutely part of that big 3 of the Miami receiving core that could easily get 2/3 of the passing targets from Tua Tagovailoa, maybe even more. And we've seen 19 targets for Mike Gesicki over the last 2 games here. That's exactly the kind of volume we want on a single game slate. The best part about Gesicki is they don't even waste any time using him as an inline traditional tight end. He is number 1 at his position in slot snaps, and he's 8th at his position in route participation rate. He is a full-blown wide receiver in this receiving core. So I do like that. He is really positively leveraged at both the captain spot and the utility. I am well over the field on Mike Gesicki. He had a 7-target game where he ended up putting up 0 fantasy points. That's in the range of outcome here. He's a tight end for, but on a single game slate, I think you do need to make a stand. And I think that this is the place I'm going to go. I'm going to have a lot of Gesicki, especially with Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, Neil, we're getting some savings too going to him in the captain spot. I mean, if you look at it, he's the only guy that amongst those top 6 that's going to be under $10,000 in that captain slot on DK. How are you handling him on this slate?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get more of him as we speak. As Matt mentioned, he looks really great in the tools. He's used as a wide receiver. He's not as expensive as the high-end receivers. He's way cheaper than all of the other guys that you consider high-end, the Devontae Parkers and the Marquez Callaway, Jalen Waddle. He's a lot cheaper than those guys. So I think it makes a lot of sense to get to a lot more Gesicki than those guys. He's only 6,400. We do have him projected for 35% ownership, which you don't love that, but he's still a positively leveraged play on this slate, projected for 9.7% captain ownership, but we have him in the captain optimal 12% of the time. Yeah, he's a play that you definitely want to get to. And then in the utility spot, even better, 31% utility ownership, 43% utility optimal. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to get over the field on Gesicki. I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it, but I think that he is a great play on this slate.
We got Nick Lepre there, diehard Miami Dolphins fan. It was fun doing it. I did my first show with him yesterday. We did a live after lock where we covered it. He said, if I'm not here on Sunday Night Football live before lock, just know it's because I lost my house betting on the Dolphins. Well, don't do that. But also, you know what? That's what you do. You go down with the ship. I know. I'm a Viking fan, as is Neil. We're sad, miserable people. Can't even talk about yesterday, whatever. But hey, Nick Vanette, We can talk about him. Durham Smythe, we can talk about him. Some of these other ancillary options. Let's talk about the Nick Van Ett play, though, first of all, because looking at the tools, and I just got to say, this is going to be the Neil Orfield line. He's got to be one of your highest owned players if you are using Awesemo's tools today, right, Neil?
That is correct. Yeah, I really like Nick Van Ett. It's rare that you see a player this positively leveraged. He has a 28.2% positive leverage score. So that means that his chance of being the optimal is 28.2% over his rostership across captain and utility spot. Yeah, we have Nick Van Ett projected for captain ownership of 1%, captain optimal 4.9%. So that is really massive positive leverage. And then in the utility, even better, projected for 10.9% ownership, utility optimal 34.6%. So Nick Van Ett looks great. I'm trusting the tools on this one. It's hard for me to really decipher this game. So when I see a player that's positively leveraged, I'm just going to trust it and go over the field. Even though, as Matt said, you can't really trust anybody on this slate. It wouldn't be shocking if Nick Van Ett puts up a goose egg, but I'm just going to trust the tools that he's going to have opportunities and take my shots there.
Yeah, anytime you're getting a full reception higher here, Odd Shopper was just up on the screen. We had Nick Van Ett. He is the top prop on the board here at Awesemo for today. 3.5 receptions prop. That's got plus money at a number of books. We're looking at one specifically. It starts with an F and ends in FanDuel, so check it out. But Nick Van Ett, definitely the over on his receptions, 2.5 being the number, 66 expected win percentage, 44% expected ROI. Are you feeling the same we are about Nick? Feeling the same way we are about Nick Van Ett?
I am. I just don't know. I think the range of outcomes is really, really high here. But again, we're kind of leaning on DFS fundamentals because we have backup quarterbacks come in. We often see them have a smaller depth of target than the starting quarterback, which often leads to a higher target share for running backs and to tight ends. And especially because the Saints wide receiver core has no star players to speak of and is pretty beat up. You look at Nick Van Ett as a pretty solid player, but we're talking about a player who over the last 4 games has a 57% snap share and has seen 12 total targets. That's 3 per game. You know, this isn't like a world-beating play here. It just looks really good from a value perspective. And this is one of the best parts about the Awesemo tools is it helps you take stands on low salary players like Nick Van Ett, and it uses statistically backed reasons to say so. So really that's what we're looking at here. I think Van Ett is a really solid play just in a vacuum. And because our tools have him so high, I will be over the field on him.
I'm with you. I think that there's definitely a path here that we got to be looking at getting to. We got to be looking at getting to some of these cheap tight end options, and there are others that aren't just necessarily him. If we've seen this how many times now on Showdown slates, it's like it's just the running joke that I can't even make anymore. But we've got Jawan Johnson, who's somebody that we could take shots on the bottom end here. He's getting 6.9%. That's not great. Is he inactive? We have a zero projection.
I think he's on the COVID list.
He's on the COVID list. Okay, I was gonna say, because he was popping up for random stuff, and it's because I was using my projected fantasy points as opposed to my projections. Make sure that you guys pay close attention to the way that it's listed there on Fantasy Cruncher, because sometimes, I trip myself up as I'm fixing stuff up, but wanted to at least throw it out there. There's other options that we should be looking at on this bottom end. Any other tight ends you guys want to touch on? We'll start with you, Neil. Anybody else that you're getting to over the field? These just ridiculous options that are surely going to catch a touchdown now.
I mean, Ethan Wolf is now the number 2 running back or tight end for New Orleans. So I think you could get to Ethan Wolf, only project for 3.1% ownership. So I'm trying to get to a little bit of Ethan Wolf, and then Adam Shaheen. The two of them have identical projections. They're both projected for 1.8 fantasy points. That just means that they'll probably get an opportunity at some point in the game. If that opportunity comes in the red zone and they happen to score a touchdown, they'll probably be optimal. It's unlikely to happen. They're not, very, very likely to hit plays, but I think Adam Shaheen and Ethan Wolf, if you really want to play chalk everywhere else and then take a shot on somebody who maybe will get a red zone look, I think that they are fine plays.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Matt Savoca?
Yeah, actually, Durham Smythe has I think in a week where we are saying that Gesicki looks like a solid play, then in a large field tournament, then you can simply pivot and say that, okay, I'm going to fade Gesicki and play Durham Smythe, say that he catches a touchdown or two, because if he does catch a touchdown, he's almost certainly in the optimal lineup at $600.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I missed saying that. I'm playing some Durham Smythe as well. I'm not going to be over the field is projected for 10%, so I'm not going over that, I don't think, but Durham Smythe makes sense as well.
All right. We've got 10 minutes left to go here? We've got 10 minutes. So I always want to double check. Yes, we got 10 minutes left. This is the kicker and defense portion of the program. My favorite, Jason Sanders, Brett Maher. Both of these guys, low total games, Neil. We've talked about this before, but generally makes kickers a little bit more intriguing, although they might not gain more fantasy points. Generally less plays, more defense. That's going to lead to more opportunities for these kickers to work out optimally. Looking at some of the numbers here at Awesemo, I will say, Awesemo's always been a guy that's pushing for kickers, getting above the field. Jason Sanders looks like the more underutilized of the two, but what are you doing at the kicker position?
Yeah, I'm playing some kickers. I'm not getting too different from the field at kicker. I'm probably going to be a little bit under the field. I think we have Jason Sanders projected for 19.4% ownership, Brett Maher at 15.7. I think that I'll be close to that. I do think this is a slate that, yeah, it makes some sense. This could be, like I said earlier, it could be a 9-6 game where the only points scored are field goals, in which case you're going to want the kickers. But I don't have a lot of confidence in it. I'll probably be close to the field. I'm not taking a huge stand either way. They don't look like they're players that really stand out in the tools. Jason Sanders has slightly positive leverage, 1.6% positive leverage, and then Mayer must have slightly, is 1.3% negative leverage. So I guess Jason Sanders, based on that, is a slightly better play, but they're basically both neutral plays at their projected ownership, and I'm trying to get close to the field.
Matt Savoca, kicker thoughts, my sir?
It really doesn't feel great when you're about to click on a kicker on a team that has 17.25 implied points. But you can do it on a single game slate when the player is 4K, and that's fine. That's fine. I have none of them in the captain spot on DraftKings right now. All of my ownership of the kickers is on FanDuel, but I'm actually slightly over the field on both players. And that's simply because I boosted them up just because of my view of how this slate ultimately plays out. Not necessarily because they look like fantastic plays on the tool. I just don't trust these offenses to overwhelm the two defenses. Let's be real. The two defensive units are the best units on the field. The offenses could both be overwhelmed despite only one starting a backup.
All right. Well, how do you see this game playing out? Because now we've got some defense, and I would say more than your average showdown slate. I mean, it's a little similar to ridiculous stuff that we saw from Dallas yesterday. There are really no words. Hopefully you enjoy being a Washington football fan, because it's got to feel the way I do about being a Vikings fan. But Matt Savoca, defense looks pretty appealing here on this slate. How are you handling them here?
Yeah, true story. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and now I love fantasy football and DFS. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's really shocking, actually.
I'm actually over the field on defenses as well. I'm more over the field on the Dolphins defense than the Saints defense, but again, we're just talking about range of outcomes. The Saints defensive unit is very, very solid. Top 10 in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses, and second in PFF's team defensive grades. And I do have some of them at the captain spot. We're talking like 2.5 to 3.5% of my lineups here. But this is the kind of slate where I'm absolutely fine going up there and taking a stand and saying, yeah, maybe we do get some defensive scores here. Maybe Ian Book does throw more than 1.5% of his passes as interceptions. That is very, very possible.
All right, as we head over to Neil, as we're rounding this out, 6 minutes to go, please do hit that like button. I don't think you guys know how far that goes for us. Helps us combat the algorithm, the YouTube overlords, I believe. Again, I'm just quoting Lofty here today. That's kind of my job. But hey, Player Q DFS, Mr. Neil Orfield, how are you handling defense? How much are you getting to on each site?
Yeah, so I mean, you can't play defense on FanDuel.
You can on Yahoo. I'm not playing on Yahoo today. Stuff. Okay, never mind. So on your one damn site, there you go.
Yeah, so I am slightly under the field on both defenses in the utility spot. I am playing 5% of the Saints defense in the captain spot and 3.8%. No, reverse of that. 5% Dolphins defense in the captain spot, 3.8% Saints defense in the captain spot. I think they're both fine plays at captain. Yeah, I think defense is a solid play, and I love that you can play them against these quarterbacks. Tua's thrown 8 interceptions this year. So it wouldn't be that shocking to see the Saints put up a big game and Tua also to throw a couple touchdowns and put up a big game. So you can play both of these defenses up against the quarterbacks, which is a way that I love to build in some negative correlation to get different than the field. Yeah, I think that they're both very solid plays. I actually wanted to go back and also call out, I like that Matt talked about kickers on FanDuel in particular. I am well over the field on both kickers on FanDuel, just because you don't have the bonuses. It's only half point PPR. So it's a lot more likely that the kickers do well on FanDuel and make it into the optimal than DraftKings. So there I do have well above the field on both kickers.
Yeah, helps to also know that, you can make stands on each site and be different, and it could actually work out optimally in different aspects. So yet another reason you guys should be playing at our sponsor site, PrizePicks, to add props into your portfolio. Another reason you should be adding, props at sportsbooks from OddsShopper. Another reason you should also just be playing on every single site around the industry, because more opportunity just creates more growth. And I mean, not everybody's going to be Neil and Bink on both sites like you did yesterday in Showdown. What a joke, by the way. How many people Bink on both sites on the same day? Like,
who
Matt,
does
what a
that?
Joke.
I mean, it was the one on DraftKings was a smaller field. There's only 1,500 people in the contest. I would not have binked with that lineup on the big one.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So are you going to give the $100,000 back?
I'm going to keep it.
Yeah,
okay. Hold on to it.
Yeah. Matt, look how over Neil Matt is right now. Just shake your head.
Yeah, I'm
Whatever.
pretend over. No, I'm super stoked for you, buddy. That was an incredible hit
great.
Last night.
It's great.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, and he's giving up his EV here. Make sure you got your lineups. You got your lineups in, right, Neil?
I did. I just resubmitted.
Matt, you got your lineups in? Good. Okay, we're all set to go here. 4 minutes left to go. If you guys have last second questions, here we go. Vanette or Maher? One lineup. I'm just going to assume DK for that one. Matt Savoca, which one would you be picking there?
Maher.
Okay. How about for you, Neil?
It's Vanette for me.
Okay, it's Vanette for me as well. Johnson is out. WTF? Yes, I just had that realization myself because I was accidentally crunching with him in. I got to just double check now. Okay, cool. He's not in my lineups. That's an important thing that I didn't double check the second time around. Oh man, it was like, I can't remember who was on I think it was Deontay Harris. I actually had in like what would have been the optimal lineup accidentally. The other week he's on IR, so don't obviously play him either. But let's continue on. Maher or Ingram? How about that one?
Oof. Actually, I'm going to say Mark Ingram.
I'll go Ingram as well.
I'll also go Ingram.
Yeah, I like Ingram a little bit just to get a little bit different in some lineups. And I actually have one that I just put in the millie because I thought it was fun, where I just did the Alvin Kamara injury situation. Not that I want to say that any louder than that. But yeah, just Ingram, if you get some increased production for whatever reason, you're not cheering for that kind of a thing. But running back, they get dinged up from time to time. Not the worst stance to take on this kind of spot. Or Mark Ingram gets a goal line touchdown. Multiple ways that it would be just fine here. I can totally see the Dolphins crapping the bed here in this spot. I think a lot of people could. This is just a low total game with a lot of things in play. Matt Savoca, you're nodding your head yes.
Yeah. This could be bad. This could be really bad.
All right. Well, that's kind of a nice way to finish out this program. We've done this before. Final score. I want your predictions for tonight. Take it to the books, boys. Fire these up. Matt Savoca, final score for this evening.
Oh, man. Dolphins 17, Saints 7.
Oh, man. Low scoring. Love it. So defense, fire it up. Neil Orfield, where are you going?
Oh, I'm going to go Saints 20, Dolphins 17. I'm sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I'm going Saints too. So I'm going to go 24-13 Saints. 24-13 Saints. Looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be fun. I really do like these short small total games here that we have where you just kind of never know what's going to happen. I think it always makes it a little bit more interesting of a build. Any final thoughts for this last minute as people are hurrying up, making entries here, Matt Savoca? Any final words for the people?
I saw a question that was I liked. I'll answer it. Favorite $200 player is Matt Collins.
Okay, yeah, it's not Duke Johnson. We're talking Juwan Johnson, who's out here. Neil Orfield,
yes.
Any final words for the people here?
Go Phillip Lindsay.
Go Phillip Lindsay. I'm going to say go Jordan McLaughlin. As I was updating basketball projections for his starting lineup, I have no idea what to make of anything, but I do know to make a thank you note here for Awesemo. That's Mike Lawrence down there producing the show. Much appreciated. Great work by you. This was a really fun one, guys. Best of luck. Obviously, Neil doesn't need luck. It's a joke. Give some of that run good to Matt. I want Matt to win. I want Matt to come back on here and just flex his muscles. Go win it, Matt. That's what I'm excited for.
Here's some run good for you.
Yeah. And I'll just, I'll win on the other sites. That'll be fine. Whatever site you want to win on, just so be it. Guys, this was a blast. Hit that like button as we get out of here. We're at lock. Enjoy the game. We'll see you back here tomorrow for some NBA coverage.